Now, the enterprise data management approach to business intelligence is based on these approaches. Firstly, the modelling approach. We model the business independently of the applications and independently of the organisation structures. It caters for all questions and all perspectives of the business, even if you don't know what those questions are on day one, because you're scoping all of the data based on the functions that create and use that data. Key differentiation, key reason why data warehousing implementations fail around the world. Business rules are modelled. Business rules can then be implemented. You have a choice of how to implement those business rules because you understand what they are right up front. So whether you build a business rules repository or business rules engine, or whether you implement them as part of the ETL layer, or implement them as part of the data layer, that comes later, but the choices are there, the options are made available right up front. You know exactly what those business rules are. The design approach. The business rules are enforced, and we provide full business rule exception management. We have some software that we've developed, which is implemented in a number of our data warehousing implementations. We call it real-time data quality management utility. It's basically an automated case management tool for managing the exceptions, that is where business rules are violated, then we throw them out. We don't populate them, we don't integrate them into the warehouse. And it's not just the errored record that's thrown out or put into an exception schema. That exception schema, I think, is more than 20 entity types. So it's not just a bucket called error or exception. There's 20 business concepts associated with that exception. That's thrown out. We provide an automated case management capability to analyse and correct the data and reprocess it. And some of our implementations, such as the Telstra Wholesale implementation, such as the Queensland Rail implementation, within 24 hours, all exceptions are corrected and reprocessed. Initially, when we implemented mobile number portability, we discovered that 60% of the industry was violating the IT specification, or the ASIF code, where all business processes and all business requirements were specified after a period of 18 months with all the key players working together in forums, and we worked with Telstra in a lot of those forums to specify what those processes and requirements were. Most of the 7 network providers had to rebuild those mobile number portability applications because they still didn't meet the needs of the regulator and of the businesses. 60% of the business rules were violated in that first 6 months. The regulator didn't believe us. They didn't believe the warehouse showed high quality data. But they do now, 8 years down the track. It took them 6 months, checking every single source record from the integrator perspective, because we hold all of those source data as well. We hold the application views as well as the business view, and we reconcile. In this case, in real time. We provide full dimensioning across the integrated database, providing any business view. So we use simple techniques like data access path analysis. By analysing all the candidate keys of all the business entity types, we can identify whether an access path is from A to B to C or from A to C, whatever the case may be. And that's preset. The views are created up front. Whether the business require them or not, the data says that that path is a possibility. So we plan for it. So we build the view. Then we stick a business intelligence tool on top that reads those views. It's simple. There's no cubes. There's no data marts. Performance is real-time access to the data, which is loaded in real time, or within 3 minutes of any transaction occurring around Australia, for example. The simplicity of the architecture promotes reuse, integration, high data quality, and it improves performance.
I have another question.
Sure.
Sorry to keep that bugging you.
Please ask.
You just mentioned that you had one view and didn't need any data marts or anything else like that. But is that assuming that all interest in data is already understood and exists in your model? I mean, I'm like wondering. I mean, there's so many things in the world of Telstra in which that I think are so incredibly unique from one business unit to another.
Yes.
Does this mean that you can adapt the model to cater for those uniqueness and customizations within each business unit, or is this just really talking about the scope of interest is what's common across all?
No. We identify both. What's common across all the business units, such as all the divisions within a Telstra corporation. For example, networks versus wholesale versus enterprise and government versus consumer. And consumer and enterprise and government are quite different, right? Now, what we do, for example, we model customer. And customer's not on this model, but we have a telco model that we have here, we can show you, where we actually model all the subtypes of customer and all the business rules associated with those subtypes. So we identify the specialisation requirements of each of those business units. So we can make that planned and informed decision right up front because we understand the data that needs to be shared, the degree of sharing, and the reuse that's required because we have the functional perspective as well. So we define, our enterprise services model defines all the functions and the business data and then the shareability of that data. Next level down, integrated logical data model based on the enterprise services model defines the specialisations. And some of those specialisations occur back in the enterprise services model because these business themes, we call them business themes. They're logical groupings of data, of similar data, like your customer contract, your customer invoice, are all business themes. Technically, some people call them data subjects, but it's a business perspective. It's a business architecture, a business blueprint. It defines business use of function, information, and data. So it should have that business flavour. Right? So we can define those specialisations right up front and reflect them back in the enterprise services model because it continually evolves. It's not a document or an architecture you say, on the table, there it is, that meets all your needs. It won't meet all your needs up front. If we meet 90% of your needs, we've done far better than a bottom-up approach, right, which has all these data gaps and doesn't consider the functional perspective, etc., etc. So, yes, answering your question very simply, yes, we specialise and therefore we can cater for all business units' needs right up front. So, simplicity promotes reuse, integration, high quality, and also improves performance. Now, people said to us when we first implemented, for example, mobile number portability, or when we first implemented a revenue leakage solution, BI solution in Queensland Rail, this is not going to work because you're implementing the model as it is, essentially. Telstra Wholesale will have 5 materialised views. That's we've denormalised the data across the whole wholesale enterprise only in 5 areas. They say that won't perform. The systems that we picked up from previous vendors, daily batch jobs were running in 27 hours. Doesn't work, just from a technical perspective. And that was based on the technical design perspective, driving the whole design. This is a business-driven perspective. Remember, we're putting one fact in one place. So what we did is that same batch job, when we redeveloped it, because the conceptual design didn't change, because we always did the conceptual design for wholesale, just other vendors did the implementation up to 2001. What happened was that we redeveloped those based on the same conceptual design. That same job ran for just over 1 hour. No fine-tuning whatsoever. Now I believe it runs in about 40-something minutes.